Well, another alternative piece that I want to get into a little bit is the homeschooling. And I know a lot of people these days, given the pandemic, are, homeschooling more than usual. At least I'm assuming that's the case. My daughter's too young for school at this point. But how did that all come about? And again, with all these different aspects that you're doing, and again, they're not, this is over a number of years. You're not doing all of
Sure.
these at one time, but you are a go-getter. You're getting a lot done in your life. How did you fit that in, and why was homeschooling important to you?
Well, yeah, I mean, in the early years, well, we kind of resonate with a Waldorf Steiner philosophy, which is, Waldorf is famously known for no electronics and no batteries and no logos and natural toys and really kind of a simplified parenting style. A lot of people also talk about RIE education in our circles, which is resource infant educators. Essentially, like not hovering over your child constantly and letting them really explore and kind of do things on their own. So those kind of two philosophies were introduced to us, pretty young. I was very drawn to Waldorf philosophy, and we did a Parent and Me program. And one of the neat things about Waldorf is they don't emphasize academics for the first 7 years, which is not to say that children don't learn or that they don't go to school or do things that are important. But that philosophy really informed a lot of our decisions about how much we needed to worry about academics for a 2 year old or a 3 year old. And we met people who had been homeschooling, and we were struck by how articulate and studious that their children were, and we loved learning about the opportunities available to children to learn in groups of children of different ages, which often happens in homeschool communities, kind of more of an old schoolhouse method. And we loved the notion of parents teaching in a co-op, which we were part of when our kids were little. And the idea is having positive control over what your children are learning and how. So it's been very interesting to hear people also talking about wanting to educate their kids, for example, about Black Lives Matter, in a way that traditional schools don't. And for those of us who homeschool, we've been able, to include the kind of learning that we want, from very early on. My ex-husband was the stay-at-home parent, and he still is an at-home dad. Um, and that's the way that most people homeschool, is with one parent working and the other not. So the notion that what people are doing during COVID is homeschooling is actually not giving them enough credit, because it's impossible to call yourself a homeschooler while having two parents working, or if you're a single parent, to be working full time and trying to school your children. So what we're all trying to do, who are not homeschooling, meaning people who are having to learn homeschooling, it's an exceptional situation for which you need to have so much gentleness around your situation, because no homeschool family I know has two working parents, and they're trying to fit all the classes in. We, as homeschoolers, we do have communities that we're part of where we get together with other families and have park days, a couple times a week, and classes in the park. And obviously, we can't do any of that now with COVID. So we have turned, to Zoom. But also, when you homeschool kids, they are raised to believe that adults will be around, adults can be relied on. And also, adults have adult work that they sometimes need to do. And you need to, have activities and a mindset that allows you to play on your own and to work on your own. So that's another thing I'm hearing from a lot of people, that their kids are kind of like, so mom, what are we going to do now? And homeschool kids know, like, this is our home day where I'm going to do all my chores and you're going to be over there and we'll meet up for snack. So I taught both of my children Hebrew, and I was their piano teacher. And, as my work life got harder, I was, able to be involved less in their kind of daily class stuff. But their dad does do that with them. And we use Khan Academy, which is an online, math learning service. And we use books from the library. We don't use a strict curriculum. We're technically unschoolers. But my older son will be likely starting community college classes, somewhere between 15 and 16, which is what a lot of focused homeschool teenagers want to do. And both of my kids were late developers, which is actually one of the original reasons that we homeschooled them. If we had put them in traditional schooling, they would have both been forced to do all sorts of therapy, which they essentially did not need. They simply needed time to grow into their bodies and their brains. My ex husband was also a late developer, And so our kids just needed more time, and it was really nice to not have to put them into, a structure that would already say you're behind. And also, we couldn't afford private school is also one of the other things. We didn't believe also that you should have to pay to have a good education, and so we kind of, I guess, took matters into our own hands.
You mentioned there your son going to community college. After being homeschooled, is there certain kind of testing that you do to be able to get back into the regular system, or how does that look?
There's a lot of really interesting kind of conversations about this in terms of some colleges waiving SATs, and there are more and more homeschool teenagers entering, these systems, so you can get transcripts. So we do have, schooling and formality. I've written rec letters for homeschool kids because I've taught, junior high and high school, so I've written rec letters for colleges. The college system really is adjusting to a lot more homeschoolers coming in, and the fact is, we feel like it's our responsibility to, prepare our children for whatever they wanna do. And if that means that they wanna learn, and be able to take the SATs, then it's our responsibility to teach them.
Well, it's interesting earlier when you talked about the fact that what parents are going through these days is more challenging than typical homeschooling. I'm curious, once we find out what the new normal is, once things settle, whatever that is after the pandemic, I wonder if people are going to be more inclined to homeschool or not. I mean, if they've had a bad experience and they
Yep.
think this is what homeschooling is, it might turn off a lot of potential people that could have, bought into that system.
What I've heard more is from people who didn't know how much they like being around their children. I'm actually hearing that more and more, even from professional people, lawyers, people like that who normally work a lot of hours, saying, "Gosh, why are we sitting in a car? Why are we carpooling like this to just put our kids in a place that we don't know what they're doing all day, and then they come home and we wonder why we don't feel connected." So I've actually heard that. I've heard also from a lot of people who have kids who've had learning challenges, that it's been really helpful to see that with some more hands-on time, their children are actually thriving. And I think that's very important. There's been a real reckoning in this whole year.